Hi, this is JP of WargamerOnline, and welcome to our latest episode of Metabreakers beating Seraphon.
This podcast is made possible by our patrons.
I'm joined by Luke Morton.
Hi there, guys. Hope you're all doing well.
And Fabian Quinn.
What's up, guys? Keeping well?
And this is probably the most anticipated episode of the Metabreakers thing. Seraphon are right now the boogeyman. You know, Lord Croak is the boogeyman boss of the boogeymen. And so, we're going to be basically just taking you through, who Seraphon are, how they work, what makes them strong, and importantly, what are their weaknesses, and how you can exploit them. And we got a couple lists we can talk about in terms of how to beat them. So, let's get to it. So, we've got an example of a Seraphon list. It's got a lot of the components of the lists that are ruining tournaments for people right now. So, your mileage may vary a little bit in terms of what exactly goes in there. But the breakdown is you see Lord Croak. He's backed up here with the Balewind Vortex to give him extra range. One of his big things is he casts an AoE spell, an area of effect spell that hits multiple units within, I think it's 10 inches of him. Balewind Vortex turns that into 16 inches, and so he can do D3 mortal wounds to a bunch of units in that range multiple times per turn. You've got the Astrolith Bearer. He also buffs the range of that spell, and he can provide Croak with an after save. You've got the Skink Priest and the Skink Star Priest who can give buffs to the two big clouds of skinks that we're going to get to. The turn sort of, they're shooting. It's not that scary by itself. I think it's 5s and 5s or something similar with buffs as they get bigger. But with those, mortal wounds, with rerolls that they're getting from these smaller characters, that damage really does become scary. We've got 5 Saurus Guard here, which are just filling out the battle line requirements. And we've got these 2 packs of Salamanders, who are, one of the scariest units in the battle tome. They're shooting their 3s and 3s, 2 rend, D3 damage. 6s do D3 mortal wounds, 6 to hit, you skip the wound roll, do D3 mortal wounds. And they do that same damage in close combat as well. So if they're shooting you and then charging you, that's where a lot of the hurt comes from, as well as the sort of chip damage from these spells and these other bits of shooting. And then the Constellation Fangs of Sotek. One of the big things about that is when you charge one of these big blocks of skinks, they can shoot you when you charge for a command point, and then on a 4+, they can also retreat 8 inches away, which means your charge might not even get to them. Your charge gets to them, but you might not even be able to hit them. I think that's a basic sort of rundown of the list. And so, Luke, would you like to tell us sort of what are the strengths of this list, and sort of when you're playing against it, what are the key things that you're watching out for that's going to get you?
Well, straight away, obviously, in that constellation, any unit can just teleport. You don't need anything for that to happen. So you always got to think about trying to screen that, or especially in an objective game, if you're going to go for an objective, you've got to make sure you've got your other objectives protected that you're already got when you're moving off to try and... Because you've got to try and get this list caught. You've got to get there in its face, and you've really got to otherwise it just picks you apart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just all the threats do high damage. I mean, when at the end of this, there's a live report that you can see, and you can just see the Salamanders. Once you start rolling them 6s, they can put some hurt out on stuff that's got very high saves.
Yeah, Luke had a very personal experience with a lot of those 6s, which we will get to later.
Oh man, Basil rolling like 8 out of 9 6s or something.
Statistically average. Expected. Average RNG.
And then you've got the 40 blocks of skinks. They are not very good on paper, but they're very cheap. Lots of bodies, and as soon as you start stacking the buffs from the Star Priest, Skink Priest, and give them +1 to hit, give them mortal wounds on 6s to wound, they can really put out the hurt. And then they're there in your face, and when you're ready to go in and charge them, if you've got no kind of pile in or anything that get around that stand and shoot, you're going to get a world of pain from that in your own turn, as well as them putting out pain in their turn. Yeah. So there's a lot of high damage output in this army, and there's a lot of maneuverability. So it's a very powerful army at the moment.
Yeah, that definitely. definitely checks out. Yeah, and again, very reliable. This damage is reliable when you've got those rerolls. You've got these sort of high damage, Croak with his bonuses to cast, and extra long range, and tanky after saves.
And you just got CPs like it's candy. You're just like,
yeah,
5 CPs this turn, and
so yeah,
you don't worry about battle shock. You're all like bravery 10, so your salamanders are pretty safe. And Croak just pumping out them immune to battle shock, and it's a very hard army to beat that way as well. So you really have to concentrate the units down, try and get rid of them fully in one go, not just trying to bravery them off or anything like that.
Good advice. All right, and Fabian, you've got the more difficult job. What would you say? What are the weaknesses that Seraphon has right now? Like if you're going up against Seraphon, what are the sort of the weak points you're leveraging to win that game?
All right, so my outlook on Seraphon has changed probably from right? I think a couple of episodes beforehand, I was like all doom and gloom. Seraphon, oh my god, just like what do we do? So I've seen a couple of games where they've been taken apart, and believe it or not, one of the weaknesses is when you do get there, they are very, very, very flaky, so very weak. So when you do get there, you can tear these units of skinks apart very, very, very quickly. The characters don't stand up to much either. Nothing's got like an insane save, if you see what I mean. So I've seen some shooting take some of the armies off, or some sneaky teleport and charge shenanigans getting into the characters. Believe it or not, and people probably will disagree with me, this is probably controversial, you can tailor your list to beat them, if you see what I mean. So I would attack their magic phase completely. If you shut that down, if you shut their magic phase down completely, they don't really do much. So if you stop all the buffs on the skinks, all of a sudden they don't have mortal wounds. Skinks don't do anything. They don't do anything. Luke talked about earlier, they have 5s and 5s, but they have all these buffs. Shut it all down. Kill it all. Just go in with the mindset of just don't be afraid of them, if you see what I mean.
I think that is a good point.
Yeah, go in, systematically kill them one by one. And I think if you shut down the magic phase, and like if Luke said, if you have things like no retreat rules, or you can get into them or surround them to a point where they can't retreat, I think you're in. And anything that's got anti-shooting as well, fantastic. If you're on -1, -2, minus, another episode we were talking about, even up to -3 to shooting, they don't do much. So if you, especially any minuses, and I found close combat armies that can get there really quickly, do deal with them as well. So there's definitely weaknesses. There's hope. We're learning now, and they don't seem as scary as before.
Well, I think that's a good point, right? Is like these skinks, they seem sort of untouchable when they've got 12 million buffs and they retreat when you charge them. But if you can set up a sort of trap where you're blocking that retreat, or you have no retreat, or a fancy pile in, because it is when they get charged, then if you're hitting them, they are just a 240 point unit of small lizards. Like they do explode. So if you do have that high damage and you can orchestrate that good charge, you'll just lift the block. And so obviously again, this is Fangs of Tzeentch, which is I think one of the more common ones. But Luke, you were telling us before about the other builds.
You've got Jacovian's Tail, which is another very powerful build that allows you to build around the Slans more and have more access to teleport, so you can play it in a very different way, but still have that high output but less bodies. And then they have the other one where they've got Kotal's Claw and Thunder Lizard, which can do a lot of damage in the shooting with the Bastiladons firing twice, ignoring 1 damage. But typically Fangs of Tzeentch and Jacovian's Tail, just because of the teleport, the bravery 10, and it's just a lot more powerful. You see, you can make a lizard army more resilient, but it will be less good in the scenario base, because obviously the game is mainly about the scenarios. So we're just really covering that side of Seraphon and why it's dominating so much.
100%. It's an objective-based game. When you're talking about controlling the magic phase, I mean, if there's sort of one big army that jumps to mind, you are looking at Disciples of Tzeentch, and so we've got a handcrafted Host Arcanum list here, which Tzeentch, you obviously have Destiny Dice, which is a great tool for dispelling and unbinding and, controlling the game anyways. We're also in Host Arcanum, which, along with some free Screamers, also gives you access to a free unbind on the odd number of turns of the game. So on turn 1, turn 3, and turn 5. And so that can be really good at shutting down a key spell for, Lord Croak or in, whatever spells in those other, in the other Seraphon builds. So, Fabian, why don't you run us through this Host Arcanum list?
Yeah, so this list I actually saw in a tournament, and it made me think about Tzeentch in a slightly different way, because it actually took apart Seraphon, and it was the Fangs of Sotic list that we've all been sort of boogeyman. And when I watched this list, it very systematically took it apart, and it very much controlled the board. The guy who played it played very, very well. He almost encircled his characters in the middle, and then encircled it so that the teleports, if there was a teleport at any point, he didn't really get punished for it, if you see what I mean. He could then go and punish the teleporting unit, which I did see him do, actually. Absolutely fantastic. The pre-game move he makes fantastic use of because of Kairos Fateweaver and Lord of Change, so it means that he can... I'll run down the list in a second, but it just means that he can move up pre... you ignore that 18-inch range that kind of stops you as an inch player. All of a sudden you're moving 6 inches, and then you're 24 inches plus other combos that we'll talk about. So the list is a Lord of Change, who's the general, who has the command trait Spell Hunters, which is the one that you have to take for Host Arcanum, which affects Screamers. So it's not really going to be used. I believe it's +1 save and +1 rend for Screamers, I believe it is. But you're not really going to be using that anyway. So the artifact is Aspect of Tzeentch, which is pretty cool, which is every time you use a Destiny dice, you roll on a 5-up, you get another Destiny dice. So you roll your dice, and you add that to your Destiny dice pile, which is
really good. It's like Ether Quartz Parish almost, right?
Say no to free Destiny dice, right? Like
yeah. Man, bring back the days you used to be able to stack. You used to be able to stack that back in AOS 1. I had 3 copies of Aspect of Tzeentch, so every time I spent a Destiny dice, I just rolled 3 dice, and I was like, "Give them back to me."
He's got the Bolt of Tzeentch. Again, guys, you can mix and match and do what you want here, but he had the Bolt of Tzeentch. Kairos Fateweaver, who's absolutely fantastic. I mean, with my Tzeentch armies, I'm never leaving home without him. He's brilliant. He's got the Tzeentch's Firestorm, which is the I believe it's you roll 9 dice. Any 6
T3,
3 mortal wounds, which is quite nice. A Changecaster Herald of Tzeentch, with the artifact the Fang Circlet, which is what you mentioned earlier about summoning 6 free Screamers. Law of Change, he's got the Treason of Tzeentch, which is roll a dice for every model in a unit on a 6-up. It's a mortal wound, so great against hordes. So the Blue Scribes. And he's got Fold Reality, which is the only thing on this list that I would disagree with, actually. I don't see a reason why you would take
Fold because you're afraid, Cat, that's why. Because you're afraid of rolling that 1. So for people who don't know, Fold Reality...
Believe in the dice.
Fold Reality is a spell where it lets you cast it on a unit of friendly demons, and you can restore D6 slain demons. So, like, for example, you get down, your pink horrors have split, you just got 5 brimstones left. You roll your d6, you roll a 6, you get 6 pink horrors back, and suddenly you've added 30 wounds to the unit. The catch, as it were, is that if you roll a 1, you just instead completely destroy the unit. So, like, your horrors it doesn't kill them, you don't get to split or anything, so you can just throw, 220 points down the drain. It is really effective on those brimstone horrors when those units get small, and, bringing back Screamers, is pretty nice as well because you're restoring 3 wounds per there's it's D6 models, so you're restoring D6 horror Screamers, sorry. But yeah, I think maybe he might have just sort of slapped that in as he's got a bunch of the good spells already. But anyways,
it's amazing on the horrors, isn't it? Because you just bring in 5 wounds back every time.
Yeah. You're effectively bringing back 5 wound models, and you can bring back your standard bearer, who can regenerate more models off Battle Shock. Sorry.
Yeah. It could be good. I'm like you said, I'm probably just a big chicken. Like with it.
I mean, he's already got 2 big chickens in the list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Battle Line, which is fantastic for Host Arcanum, is 2 units of 3 Screamers. Cheap Battle Line and very fast as well. 16-inch movement. Everyone knows what pink horrors, 10 of those. Then he's got 10 brimstone horrors of Tzeentch for some chaff, and 2 exalted flamers of Tzeentch, which I saw do absolutely brilliant work against as well. All wrapped up in the change host, which is absolutely brilliant. I can't believe he's managed to get the change host in this.
Yeah, it's one of those lists you read through it and you're like, nice, and then you're like, oh, and it fits in change host and these 3 endless spells. Like, it is really one of those.
Oh yeah, absolutely fantastic. Like the Ava Void Pendulum, I saw him use to make, again, amazing effect. The spell portal, and then again, probably the second and last thing that I disagree with is Bellwind. I get extra range, but that's, it's only really, you can only use it on your blue scribes and your change casters.
Yeah,
so
it probably is. Yeah, I can see putting a palisade in there.
Yeah, I don't leave home without the palisade, so I probably leave.
The reason I don't play palisade is I'm really bad at using it. Like, I always set it up, and then I'm immediately like, wait, I need to leave. Like, I cast it in your phase right in front of my guy, and I'm like, nice. And then I'm like, I need to move past it. Or you're just playing like versus KO, and you have to be some sort of galaxy brain geometry genius to figure out where you can put it to block them after they teleport. So I just slap something else in there.
What's brilliant about that change host fitted in, though, is just those exotic flamers can fit pretty much anywhere on the board. It's so hard to screen it out.
Exactly. And
one little sneaky flamer just goes in and just blows something away.
Well, yeah. So the downside of taking exalteds to normal flamers is normal flamers, when they're near an exalted, get that +1 to hit. They just get +1 to hit from being near an exalted. The damage is actually quite similar for 3 flamers and 1 exalted, but if you are playing versus blocks of 40 skinks, then all the flamers are hitting on 2s already, because they get bonuses to hit versus hordes. So when you're playing versus those skinks, your exalted flamers are basically just like cheap, unscreenable blocks of flamers, as Luke points out, because it's going to be so hard to screen out, one flamer teleporting anywhere on the board and just, popping D3 damage shots rend 1 into whatever you don't want them to.
So this list summons units of blue horrors, and again, against the Seraphon, they're casting spells as well, so they're adding to your fate points. So I would imagine that this list summons a unit of 10 blue horrors every turn, so 10 fate points every turn is really achievable for this list.
Yep.
So again, you are pushing out and controlling the board more and more and more, and protecting yourself from that teleport. So you, with this list, and again, we'll get onto it, but you can play it in different hosts. But with this list, with the strength of Tzeentch, I find, is the summoning and the board control. So this list, turn 1, shuts down a Croak. From setting up his Bellwind Vortex, because you get your automatic unbind, no problem at all for turn 1. You also have the Lord of Change, who gives you +1 to casting as well. So with the Kairos' ability and Lord of Change's ability, if you roll 2 dice and you roll a 6, you automatically turn both of those dice into the highest one, so that'll become a 12, and then you get +1 to cast more, which is 13. So it's very hard for Lord Croak to stop your spells going through.
And you obviously have Destiny dice if you desperately need them. And the other thing, which I never ever remember, is that if you unbind something on a 9 or higher with the Lord of Change, and I think with Kairos as well, you also learn that spell.
Yeah, you do.
And it doesn't even have to be a successful unbind. So I think if Croak casts like his AoE Mortal Wound spell, and you roll a 9 or higher to unbind it, so say you roll either of your dice as a 4, or it might have to be unmodified, so either of your dice is a 5 on the unbinding roll, even if the spell goes off, your Lord of Change now learns that spell, and you have this Umbral spell portal, so you can deliver it's a right back at them. I don't think there's any restriction on deliverance of Itza for who can for which type of wizard can cast it. But yeah, so you're also, I mainly bring that up because in game I never ever remember it.
Yeah. It successfully. So if you successfully unbind it,
okay,
unbind a roll of a 9+, and you've got to remember as well. This is not. It doesn't have to be. It's not unmodified. So again, when you're dispelling, again when you're rolling your dice and you roll, you match your highest dice. If you roll that 9+, you're just laughing. Sorry, excuse me. So with having like, with getting +1 to casting and binding rolls as well, you literally, with a combination of Lord of Change and Kairos Fate Weaver, you shut down most magic races. Yeah, that's 5 unbind you're getting with rolling 2 dice and matching the two highest dice match, and you get +1.
Yeah, and not to mention Kairos once per game, right? Can also change any dice, any like dice that's like a charge or a charge or a casting or a hit roll or anything. He can change it to anything he wants. So, maybe you're low on Destiny dice and Croak gets off that spell on a 12, and you're like, okay, well now it's actually on a 7, and you needed an 8 to cast it, or you can change. You sort of have so much, as you say, so much control, right? You've got these dice matching. You've got these Destiny dice. You've got the Kairos once per game. You've got the automatic unbinds on turn 1, 3, and 5. So like the amount of resources your opponent has to get you through in order to stop you from controlling the magic phase is just so high. So
what one of the real and another tournament game that happened actually. This list played against OBR, and the OBR player set up a certain way, and this list killed one of his characters on the first turn. And you might be thinking, hold on a minute, it's only an 18-inch range. Well, no, my friends, you don't have an 18-inch range. Okay, so you've got your Host Arcana move of 6 inches for say it's Kairos. So you get 6-inch move free. You then get to cast your Umbral Spell Portal, which is an inch away, and then you can set the other one up 18 inches away after that.
Which is like 20 inches in total if you include the 1 inch from the model, the 1 inch base, and then wholly with an 18. So it's about an extra 20 inches.
Yep. And then you've got your 18-inch spell. So that's 38 inches away. You've now, on the first turn, you're now casting Kairos' spell, which is a flat 6 mortal wounds and creating a spawn.
Yeah.
So that Astrolith Bearer, come here, boy!
Yeah, exactly. So like... And again, yeah, Skink Snarf. I think again an important thing also to remember is that, and we talk about this all the time on Metabreakers, if your opponent hasn't played versus this list before, you sort of tell them, you're like, and I think it's any unit that flies, right, gets a pre-game move. So you're like, okay, my flying units get a pre-game move. And I've got, we've got Kairos and I've got the portal. And your opponent's sort of looking at this and they're like, okay, they're adding it up. But they don't necessarily, you think of a pre-game move and you think, okay, he's going to move some Screamers onto an objective or closer to me, or, until you see really the sort of, wait, I was 40 inches away and you still got me combo. And then your Astrolith Bearer is dead and it's too late. It's a good learning experience.
It's even the change caster's not a big deal losing it. So you could just, because that's so small, you could just go, normally these Seraphon heroes, they all castle around each other to get all these buffs.
Mm-hmm.
If he just fits somewhere sneaky and fires a pendulum out into all of them, they're all taking big mortal wounds. I know he might not get it off, but you got your Tzeentch dice to make sure that you get it off, and then Croak's got to dispel it.
And you can also change the Croak dice. You can change the Croak dice if you need to with the... So you as you say, you can just trade your Change Caster for doing D6 mortal wounds to everything in a row, and then because if you use your Destiny dice, you're probably casting it on a 9 or higher, which means your Change Caster gets to cast the second spell for free, and he has a D6 mortal wounds on spell on his scroll. And again, maybe you don't get it off, but if you've already hit everything with D6 mortal wounds, and then your opponent's now blowing unbinds on your second D6 mortal wounds before you've even cast your big spells, through the portal, your opponent, and if you kill the Skink Star Priest, and your opponent's already down a hero before they even can start thinking about how they're going to deal with all the rest of your spells. So
it's even the Salamanders. I mean, because you're lower drop, you make the Seraphon player go first. He makes any kind of mistakes with his positioning. That guy sneaks in, gets that pendulum out.
Yeah.
It's doing more than D6. It's double tapping, and you can't stop that. It's doing 2D mortal wounds. Because in between moves again, you can wipe them Salamanders out if they're close together. Or pretty much kills, like what Fabian's saying. Take the Banner Bearer off or the Star Priest off with a Gift of Change, and that pendulum goes off and takes another hero off if they've spread out.
Yeah.
You're getting multiple heroes, but you could easily just take 2 heroes out straight away. I think that's what's Fabian about saying about the OBR. It was one of our friends, Owen. He just lost it was on Arcane Places of Power. He just lost 2 heroes straight away. His pendulum went off twice. and then the gift of change took another hero off, and it's just game over at that point against those kind of armies.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing Tzeentch has always been good at, it's been that surgical removal of exactly the thing you need to take out. And again, especially these screamers, when screamers fly, I think this is true. When screamers fly over a wizard, they do mortal wounds. Is that true, or is that only in?
Yeah, I believe it's on a 5-up. They do mortal wounds.
Yeah, so it's mortal wound. I think they do on a 5-up as D3 mortal wounds to a wizard. And you've got these exalted flamers, and you've even got things like your pink horrors have shooting, your brimstone horrors have shooting. So you sort of you got one spell off, and then Croak Unbound the other one, and now you've left the Skink Star Priest on 1 wound. You've got a lot of units that you can just send in. You can even charge a block of 3 screamers. Sometimes. If there's a little, they go 16 inches and get a charge. You can Destiny Dice a 12-inch charge over a screen, and Tzeentch is really good at just saying, okay, I need to take this. I need to kill these heroes. I will now do it. Okay, I'll use my Exalted Flamer. I'm -1 to hit you because you're got look out, sir. So I'm hitting on 5s. You just say, okay, here's a Destiny Dice. I've hit all 3. I've wounded all 3, and now, it's like, okay, you can save them, but it's 1 rend D3 damage, so if you fail any of these saves, you just die. So Tzeentch is really good at picking out those heroes.
For sure. Your 2 big casters basically nullify Croak, so Croak's just literally taken out of the game because you move up, take the central board as well because you've pushed out everything. You can change host your move your change caster out, and then summon your 3/6 screamers.
Yeah.
Which then can then move and then charge. So they can literally charge across the whole.
You go 9 inches away from the screen, and then they're going 16 inches plus a 12-inch charge if you want it. A 10, 11, 12-inch charge depending on your Destiny Dice. So you really have a lot of options. And again, this is stuff that your opponent, they're like, okay, I know that you can do each of these things individually, but they don't realize that means they can put. I saw a game against Techless with Host Arcanum, where he gave the Techless player turn 1, didn't do very much, and then he teleported, dropped his 6 screamers, flew over Techless, charged Techless, bit Techless, won the next turn, flew over him again, and then that was it. So you've got these combos that people probably haven't seen a lot. They just you can really, if you're playing against this sort of Tzeentch list, you have to be so sure that your bunker is safe. It's not enough to just be like, oh yeah, I got a frontal barrier. You've got to be crazy sure.
I like what you're saying about the Exalted Flamer, give him +1 to hit to some flamers. You can just put 3 flamers on the board.
Oh yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
Shooting in your army, it's just a toolbox army, isn't it? It's just, and it's so reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could take out 2 units of Salamanders quite comfortably in 1 turn, like with the 2 Exalted Flamers shooting the Aether Void Pendulum, and then your magic from your Fate Weaver and all the change. You could wipe out 2 units of Salamanders, and or you could go after the characters, or you could go after the Skinks with your Screamers and X, Y, and Z. So it has a lot of game. And also, people might be thinking, oh, well, you're leaving your castle and you're kind of leaving yourself open. Well, no, because the amount of magic you're casting out is you're now summoning another 10 horrors. So you're now plugging the holes that the Screamers are flying in to go and kill those weaker characters and weaker units. And we talked about that earlier with the weakness about how when you get there, they're not very, very good. And you've got to kind of ignore the units that can spend that command point and retreat. You have to go for the Salamanders and that sort of thing, and just take that out of the equation. So just think smart when you're playing maybe this list or your other lists. Anything you can do to nullify one of their big threats like Croak, like this list does. You've got to play smart with it. And like I was talking to JP earlier, you can mix this up a little bit. You can change the host, so you can go host Duplicitous. And I know JP's played so many games with host Duplicitous, so he knows all about it. But some of the benefits of host Duplicitous are like, JP, do you want to go through some of the?
Yeah, sure. So you're losing your automatic unbinds, but you are getting rerolls around your general to cast Dispel and Unbind. So you're getting rid of those automatic ones to always have these reliable rerolls. You don't get Screamers as battle lines, so you change the list up a little bit, but you are then getting more units of Pink Horrors, who are just a terrifyingly strong unit right now. You've got the no retreat, so Luke was pointing out to me earlier that if you're tagging those units so they can't retreat, not only can they not use their Fangs of Sotek retreat move, but also you're forcing your opponent's hand on how they use their teleport. What the player wants to do is he wants to say, okay, I don't need my skinks in combat, I'll just retreat them onto the objective. And you're like, nah, I've tagged one skink on the corner, they're not going to do any damage to your horrors, and they're just going to be stuck there. And so you've also got more board control with those more bodies. You've got your own teleport with the change house, so you can really control where your opponent's like, I have to teleport my block of skinks, which I didn't really want to do, and I'm limited in where I can put it. And sometimes some battle plans you can just completely block off those objectives. So I like Host Arcanum. I was sort of initially cold to it, but I think especially with some of the changes to the Tzeentch book, it's just getting the results. And it looks like a super fun list to play. Screamers they're so fast. That I think it really is pretty fun. But yeah, okay, so that was a rundown of the Tzeentch list. I think that's a good strong army to put forward into this Seraphon matchup. Again, Seraphon are a very strong army, so both, it's and a toolbox army, as Luke said, the Tzeentch list, you've got to play smart. And I think when you play a list like that with most of the Tzeentch lists, you're going to finish the game and you're going to think of you've had, win or lose, you're going to be like, I had so many decisions to make there. I could have played that game in all these different ways. So, Seraphon, again, they're very powerful. They're top of the meta for a reason. They're going to punish any mistakes you mistake very badly. But I think Tzeentch is a great army for doing that. And if you're looking for if you don't want to be that guy, you don't want to buy any Tzeentch because people are going to...
You want the meta choice.
Yeah, if you want to avoid the meta choice and you want to be a bit more of a meta breaker rather than just beating Seraphon.
What are you trying to say? I'm that guy.
Luke has had good success playing versus, I think, this exact or similar Seraphon list, playing the ever more popular Varangard Knights of the Empty Throne list, had a very close tournament game where Luke was ahead on points for the whole game, but unfortunately they ran out of time before they could finish it, before we could see sort of the last couple priority rolls. But that battle report is up on WargamerOnline. You should check it out. It showcases the army, and you can see the things that Luke does to sort of pick apart the sort of Fangs of Sotek list. But if you want to tell us, Luke, quickly, what you think about how that matchup goes down.
Yeah, I played it I just went for it in that game just to try and just to see how that, because normally when you play the Fangs list, especially with the Varangard, it's probably best to stay as a castle.
You mean when you play the Slaves list?
And then just grab the units as they come in at you, and then do it that way. But it's a lot slower that play. But that other play I think it still worked. Mm-hmm. And if I got doubled at any point, then the Seraphon army was definitely going to beat me. But yeah, if you watch that back, it ended as a draw on that. But it still had game to win that game, and so did the Seraphon. So yeah. It's because it's got tools to beat it. It's got the minuses to hit. It's got the 6-inch pile in, so they can't do the standing and shooting and running away. So it's got game against that, and it's got its own kind of teleport, not as reliable, but if it goes off, then it can cause some real hurt. I mean, Fabian got the teleport off against Seraphon, but then he bounced, but it was just super unlucky.
It is a dice game at the end of the day. But so you will get a battle report up on WargamerOnline where you can see this Tzeentch list versus the Seraphon list, and I'm sure the Tzeentch list will win, because otherwise, we would never say this sort of thing on the internet if it was wrong. And as we said, you can check out the Slaves to Darkness Varangard matchup is already up. But yeah, that I hope this was helpful sort of deconstruction of how Seraphon works, and I'm sure we'll see them fall from the top of the meta as this video goes live, and all our resident host Arcanum players just slaughter the lizards. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks to our Patreons, and that's a bye from me.
That's a bye from me. Thanks, guys.
See you later, guys.
See you next time.
This video is made possible by our patrons. If you want to know more about how to support us, click on the link to the right.